If you are the type of person who refuses to ask for help, even when you are completely drowning under an overwhelming mountain of responsibilities, you probably tell yourself that you just have an exceptionally strong work ethic. You might wear your ability to handle absolutely everything on your own like a proud badge of honor, genuinely believing it makes you superior, unbreakable, and perfectly self-sufficient in a world that constantly lets people down. When someone offers you assistance, your immediate, almost involuntary gut reaction is to push them away and say, "I have got it covered." Even if your chest is tight with anxiety and you are secretly burning out from sheer exhaustion, you take care of everyone else. You solve every problem. You become the reliable anchor for everyone in your life, yet you strictly forbid anyone from taking care of you. But what if I told you that this incredible strength you pride yourself on is not a sign of high functionality at all, but rather a deeply ingrained trauma response? What if your proudest trait, your total and absolute independence, is actually a defensive fortress built by a terrified, lonely child who realized very early on that the adults around them were completely unreliable, emotionally unstable, or chronically overwhelmed? When a child learns that asking for help leads to rejection, disappointment, or being viewed as a heavy burden, their developing brain makes a silent, subconscious vow to survive, promising never to depend on another living soul ever again. This is not just a harmless personality quirk. It is a clinical psychological phenomenon known as hyperindependence, and it affects millions of adults who are forced to grow up much too fast. Right after this, you are going to see the single most terrifying realization about your own daily behavior, something that will completely shatter how you look at your past, upbringing, and your current adult relationships. It is the exact moment you understand that your brain adapted to childhood neglect by completely shutting out the rest of the world, creating a state of chronic psychological hypervigilance that keeps your body flooded with stress hormones like cortisol, even when you are in a perfectly safe environment. You think you are protecting yourself, but you are actually trapping your inner child inside a massive castle with no drawbridge, starving yourself of the very love, intimacy, and support you secretly crave. You live in a constant state of secret resentment, wondering why nobody ever steps up to help you, while simultaneously blocking anyone who tries. In this video, you will uncover the 5 specific childhood signs that forced you to become your own savior. You will learn the exact biological mechanism of how this defense system secretly sabotages your modern relationships. And most importantly, you will discover the concrete psychological steps to safely lower your guard and heal. Let us begin. To understand why you operate this way today, we have to go back to the very beginning of your story, to a time when you were completely defenseless. Let us look at the first undeniable sign of hyperindependence, which is an absolute and agonizing inability to delegate even the simplest tasks at work or in your personal life. On the surface, you appear to be the ultimate overachiever, the classic Type 1 personality who handles everything flawlessly without ever dropping the ball. Your boss loves you, your colleagues rely on you, and everyone around you wonders how you manage to keep so many plates spinning at the exact same time. But let me tell you about the reality behind closed doors, because I have been there myself. I used to think that doing everything myself simply meant I had incredibly high standards and a flawless attention to detail. I told myself that if I wanted a job done right, I just had to do it myself, because other people would inevitably mess it up or work too slowly. But if we peel back the layers of this behavior, we find a deeply rooted childhood adaptation. Think back to your early years. Were you raised in a home where the adults were chronically overwhelmed, wrapped up in their own intense financial struggles, or constantly fighting? Did you have a parent who was emotionally volatile, where you had to walk on eggshells every single day just to avoid triggering a massive explosion? In psychology, we know that when a child grows up around chaotic or emotionally unavailable caregivers, they quickly realize that their environment is fundamentally unsafe and unpredictable. The child learns that asking for a parent to help them with a problem, or even to just listen to their emotional distress, leads to a painful dead end. You might have been met with an angry outburst, a cold shoulder, or a heavy sigh that made you feel like your very existence was an exhausting burden to the people who were supposed to protect you. To survive that intense emotional neglect, your brilliant young brain developed a defensive fortress with no drawbridge. You built a massive, beautifully engineered castle to keep the chaos out. You made a subconscious vow that if you never asked anyone for anything, you could never be let down, rejected, or abandoned again. So today, when a colleague offers to take a project off your desk, or your partner offers to help you clean the house, your brain does not perceive that offer as an act of kindness. Instead, your nervous system interprets it as an immediate threat to your survival, triggering a massive spike in stress hormones like cortisol, because depending on another human being feels exactly like walking back into that chaotic childhood living room where no one was coming to save you. But that is not even the most exhausting part of this defense mechanism. This brings us directly to the second major sign, which is feeling an intense wave of guilt, anxiety, or even profound shame whenever someone actually manages to do something nice for you. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable you feel when someone buys you a gift, gives you a genuine compliment, or offers to pay for your meal? Your immediate instinct is probably to downplay it, to overcompensate by immediately offering to pay them back, or to instantly find a way to return the favor so that you do not owe them anything. You hate feeling indebted to anyone because in your childhood database, help was never free. If you think back to your past, you might remember that whenever a caregiver did something for you, it came with a heavy emotional price tag. Maybe it was held over your head during an argument as proof of how ungrateful you were. Maybe it was used as a weapon to make you feel guilty. Or maybe it was accompanied by a reminder of how much they sacrificed just to take care of you. When help is wrapped in resentment during your formative years, your developing mind creates a powerful cognitive association that says receiving assistance equals loss of control and total vulnerability. This is exactly how people develop a dismissive avoidant attachment style. You learn to protect your independence at all costs because you believe that if you let someone do something for you, they will eventually use it to control you, manipulate you, or remind you of your weaknesses. Your body physically reacts to kindness with tension because your inner child is waiting for the other shoe to drop. You are constantly hypervigilant, trying to figure out the hidden motive behind every kind gesture because you simply do not believe that anyone could ever love, support, or help you unconditionally. Now, this brings us to a darker and much more hidden manifestation that almost everyone misses, which is the third sign: becoming a compulsive fixer and caretaker for everyone else, while strictly hiding your own struggles. This is the classic lone wolf dynamic of type 2 hyperindependence. You are the person that everyone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning when their life is falling apart because they know you will show up with a solution, a calm demeanor, and an open heart. You are an expert at navigating other people's crises because you have been practicing since you were 7 years old. This often happens to children who experience parentification, a psychological phenomenon where the roles are reversed and the child is forced to act as the emotional or practical parent for their own caregivers or siblings. Perhaps you had to comfort your mother while she cried about her marriage, or you had to cook dinner and clean the house because your parents were completely checked out or working multiple jobs. You learned very early on that your value in the family unit was entirely dependent on what you could perform, achieve, or fix. You were praised for being so mature for your age and for never causing any trouble. But that praise was a trap because it taught you that you were only worthy of love when you were useful and that your own needs, feelings, and vulnerabilities had to be buried deep underground because there was simply no room for them in the house. As an adult, you continue this exact pattern by building relationships where you are always the giver and never the receiver. You unconsciously seek out people who are broken, messy, or in constant need of saving because as long as you are fixing them, you can maintain total control. You can keep the focus entirely on their problems, ensuring that no one ever gets close enough to see how lonely, hurting, and exhausted you actually are inside your fortress. But what happens when the weight of the entire world finally becomes too heavy to carry on your own shoulders? That leads us directly to the fourth sign, which is a profound and underlying distrust of other people's competence and reliability. You might tell yourself that you just have an incredibly high standard of excellence, or that people these days are just lazy and irresponsible. But the truth is much more painful. Your hyperindependence has created a cognitive distortion that convinces you that no one can ever do things as well as you can or care as much as you do. When you look at your childhood, this distrust makes perfect sense. You grew up in an environment where promises were constantly broken, where appointments were missed, and where emotional support was entirely unpredictable. Your young mind had to make sense of a world where the people who were legally and morally responsible for your safety were completely incapable of providing it. To protect yourself from the agony of constant disappointment, your brain created a rule that says, if I rely on someone else, I will be let down. And if I am let down, I might not survive the pain next time. So you stop giving people the chance to show up for you. You micromanage your employees. You shut down your romantic partners before they can even make a mistake. And you carry the entire burden of your household alone because your nervous system genuinely believes that delegation is a direct pathway to betrayal. You live in a constant state of internal tension, keeping your guards up 24 hours a day because you truly believe that the moment you relax, the moment you trust someone else to hold the rope, everything you have built will come crashing down around you. This leads us to the fifth and final sign, which is perhaps the most painful paradox of all. Secretly harboring intense, bitter resentment toward the people in your life for not supporting you, even though you never ask for help and actively block anyone who tries. You look around at your friends, your family, and your coworkers, and you feel a deep, heavy sadness because it feels like nobody ever checks on you. Nobody ever steps up to lighten your load, and nobody cares about your exhaustion the way you care about theirs. You think to yourself, look at everything I do for them. Why does no one ever do the exact same for me? But if someone actually asks you how you are doing, or if you need a hand, your automatic response is always a cheerful, defensive, I am totally fine. I have got this. You are trapped in a self-fulfilling prophecy of your own making. Your childhood trauma taught you to hide your needs so perfectly that the world genuinely believes you do not have any. They see your flawless exterior, your high productivity, and your unbreakable strength. And they assume you are perfectly fine being left alone. They do not see the lonely child crying inside the fortress, starving for deep human connection and unconditional care. You are desperately waiting for someone to love you enough to fight through your walls, to see past your fake smile, and to force you to accept help. But because real life does not work like a movie, people simply take you at your word and walk away, leaving you trapped inside the very isolation you constructed to keep yourself safe. But if you see yourself in these 5 signs, I want you to take a deep, slow breath right now, because we are about to completely reframe how you look at your hyper-independence. For years, you might have felt a deep, underlying sense of shame about this behavior. You might have read self-help books or listened to people tell you that your inability to trust others is a toxic flaw, a broken mechanism, or a shameful weakness that you need to fix immediately. But today, I want to offer you a completely different perspective. Because your hyper-independence is not a flaw at all. It is actually a brilliant, fiercely loyal survival strategy that was built by a brave, incredibly resilient child who had to find a way to protect themselves when no one else was around to do it. Your hyper-independence is like a loyal soldier who stood guard at the gates of your mind for decades, keeping you safe from a world that felt unpredictable, neglectful, or dangerous. That child did exactly what they had to do to survive. And for that, you should not feel shame. You should feel an immense sense of gratitude for your own inner strength. But here's the profound twist you need to understand. The war that you were fighting during your childhood is finally over. You are no longer that helpless child trapped in that chaotic environment. You are a capable adult now, with the power to choose your surroundings, set your own boundaries, and protect your own peace. The loyal soldier who kept you alive during the war is now keeping you trapped in isolation during peacetime. Your beautiful fortress has slowly become your prison. Healing from hyper-independence does not mean you suddenly become weak, helpless, or entirely dependent on others. It simply means learning how to build a functional drawbridge on your castle. It means recognizing that you can still be incredibly strong while occasionally allowing someone else to help you carry the heavy weight of the world. It starts with incredibly small micro steps. It means the next time you are feeling slightly overwhelmed and someone offers to help you with a minor task, instead of your automatic defensive reflex to say, I have got it covered, you pause, take a slow breath, look them in the eyes, and say, thank you. I would really appreciate that. It means allowing yourself to be seen in your moments of exhaustion, because vulnerability is not the opposite of strength. It is the ultimate form of courage. If you look closely at your life today, ask yourself this one critical question. Are you truly happy living inside that massive, untouchable fortress? Or are you just safe from disappointment? Are you willing to live the rest of your life completely alone, carrying every single burden until you physically collapse, just to avoid the temporary discomfort of asking for help? True human connection cannot exist without a little bit of risk. You have to be willing to let someone hold the rope, even if there is a small chance they might drop it, because the alternative is starving yourself of the very love and intimacy you desperately deserve. You have proven to the entire world that you can survive anything on your own. But now, it is time to stop just surviving and finally start living. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel right now, because in our very next video, I'm going to reveal a shocking psychological secret that 99% of people do not know about how childhood trauma permanently alters your physical brain structure and nervous system. You definitely do not want to miss that life-changing analysis, so make sure you click that subscribe button and turn on notifications immediately. I will see you in the next video.